Thank you for joining me on my masterclass. Now, today I'm going to be talking about the best stocks to buy. Now, the reason I'm doing this is just because of your feedback. I saw your comments in the comment sections of my videos, and then a number of you were able to get my email address, and then you sent me emails, and you were asking, Pastor Reno, with all that's happening, right now, the Nigerian naira is collapsing. The British pound has really collapsed. It used to be 1.64 to $1. Right now, it's about 1.113 to the US dollar, almost parity to the US dollar. We've lost a lot of money. What can we do? In the United States, we are seeing also the same thing. The dollar is strong, yes, but then the stock markets are down, real estate markets are down. What's happening? What can we do? What are the best stocks to invest in? And I see your questions. I see your questions. First and foremost, here's why all of this is happening. The world is in turmoil. The world is in turmoil. So you have to realize how interconnected the world is. The world is very interconnected. So you've got the Russia-Ukraine war. Now, the Russia-Ukraine war is not just affecting things like the wheat harvest in Ukraine, which is the fourth largest global supplier of wheat. It's not just affecting it, because a lot of people don't realize when you go into a grocery store, a lot of things in there, they have a wheat component. And so when the global supply of wheat is affected, it's going to affect the prices of a lot of commodities, because it's going to affect the production cost. And then besides that, the international travel routes that global merchant marines, used to take. Now, merchant marines are people that just go about from country to country, getting products from country A to country B. So imports and exports are being affected. Why? Because you've got a war going on, and the war is not just being fought on land and in the air. It's being fought in the oceans, in the seas. You got Russian submarines that are shooting down, like ships. And people now, maybe it used to be just very easy for you to go to point A to point B. Now you have to go from point A to point C to avoid point B, because there could be a submarine there. And then that supply chain crisis is affecting all companies all around the world. So there's turmoil, and you cannot really predict what's going to happen with the market, because this is war. Anything can happen with war. It's like during the Second World War, the same thing happened. If you look at what he said, Warren Buffett, his testimony about the Second World War, people couldn't predict what was going to happen. When the Japanese attacked the United States, the stock market would just go down. When they recovered, it would go up. It was unpredictable. So that's why you're having what you're having right now. Now, what can you do? You see, in times where risk has really become so widespread, you cannot be risk averse, because money is money. It cannot sit in your bank account, because if it sits in your bank account, inflation is going to destroy the value. Devaluation, what we're seeing in the United Kingdom and in America, sorry, not in America, in Nigeria and Ghana, will just affect the value. So you got to do something. You can't just do nothing. You got to do something. And this is what you need to do. You need to spread your risk. You need to hedge your risk. So I think you're asking the wrong question by asking Pastor Reno, which shares should we buy? Which stock should we buy? If you do that, if you start saying, okay, you want to invest in shares, you want to invest in particular stocks, it's going to be a mistake, because nobody, even the most intelligent AI, can't predict what's going to happen. Patterns do not work during war, because like patterns work where there's order, and AI, artificial intelligence, algorithms, they work with patterns. So what you need to do is not to ask which stock to put your money in. You need to ask which ETF or which index to put your money in. Now, why is that? Because ETFs and index, they spread your money, via a variety of stocks, a variety of shares, so that if one goes down, then there's a good chance of the other correcting that one that has gone down. Or if this one goes down, there's a good chance of the previous one correcting it. And then what you want to do, you want to invest in a good stock. Now, for instance, WisdomTree is quite good. You can invest in WisdomTree, which is a very good ETF. WisdomTree is good. It's solid. So it gives a very solid above 3% quarterly yield. So you can make your money there. Above 3% quarterly yield. And then the good thing about the good thing about WisdomTree is that your portfolio is actually increasing, because with a lot of these index funds or ETFs, what they do is that they can give you a very good dividend yield, but then your portfolio is actually reducing. So, I mean, some people might call it, like a draw. So they just draw you in, with sweetness, that's dividend yield, but then your portfolio is actually reducing. So you want to look for an ETF or a dividend stock, or an index stock, index fund rather, that your portfolio is also growing, and your dividend yield, your quarterly dividend yield, or your month or your yearly dividend yield is actually growing as well. So WisdomTree is quite good. I would recommend that. However, I think the very best, the one that I would recommend the most, the one that will be top on my list would be the Global Exchange SDF. So the Global Exchange SDF. Now, what does SDF stand for? SDF stands for Super Dividend ETF, super dividend. So S is for super, div is for dividend. So Global Exchange is the company, and then the particular product is the SDIV, super dividend ETF. Now they've also got a DIV, so you got Global Exchange DIV. I wouldn't recommend that as much because that just it looks at the funds, it looks at markets in the United States. And right now, with all that's happening in the United States, you see that inflation is almost in fact, it is at an all-time high. You see that the stock market is going down. You see that the Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Fed, just raised interest rates by 0.75 basis point on November 2nd. And then in England, the Bank of England followed the next day, November 3rd, with the same 0.75 basis point increase in interest rates. So what the Global Exchange SDIV does is that they don't invest in the biggest corporations by market share or by market capitalization in America. They invest in the biggest companies by market cap in the whole world. So that's why it's called the Global Exchange SDIV. So they are now looking at the best shares in China, in France, in South Africa, in Nigeria, in copper fields, in different places, in Ghana, gold ETFs in Ghana. So they're investing globally. So when you're investing globally, so for instance, I just mentioned that the Fed increased the interest rates in America by 0.75 basis point. Now, eventually, it's going to affect the whole world. But then immediately, the immediate impact is that it's going to affect America. So you see that if you look at all the American stock exchanges, if you look at with what's happening now, for instance, with um, the Dow Jones, the Nasdaq, the New York Stock Exchange. If you come to England, if you look at the FTSE, look at the London Stock Exchange. If you come to Paris, if you look at the Paris Stock Exchange, otherwise called the Bourse. If you go to the DAX in Germany, you see that it's really affected them. But in the places like China, India, Nigeria, South Africa, it hasn't yet caught up. So you've got more stability with a global SDF. So that's why I recommend the Global Exchange SDF, for you, because it is something that, like the vagaries of the market, you're better protected there. And if you look, we've got historical data to back this up. So if you see in 2019, they had a 12.64, I think, it's going to flash up on the screen, growth. And so, that's pretty high when you compare it with others. Last year, I believe it was about 3.25. So that's quite high. And the reason why it's high is because, they're spreading it worldwide. So I would recommend that rather than for you to go cherry picking, because if you look at the S&P 500, the S&P 500, which is what a lot of index funds they just take the S&P 500 and then they invest in that index. So the S&P 500 is from Standard & Poor's. Every day they are monitoring the 500 largest corporations by market capitalization in America, and they have an index. And then these index funds, they just buy that index and they look at these 500 corporations. And then when you buy into their index fund, they invest your money in any of those. So the Global Exchange SDIF, they go further out of America. So that's why I would recommend them. Now, a lot of people are going to say to me that, okay, how can I buy into this? You can go directly. I'm going to put their website. It's going to come up. You can go directly and you can buy into it. Or you can actually buy into it via eToro. eToro now allows you to buy into global exchanges, global ETFs, and then global index funds. So you can buy through eToro, or you can also go buy it through some other apps. You can research by yourself. So I would recommend just going directly. I'm going to put their website, or you can buy it through eToro. Now, I got to remember that I want you to remember that when you're doing this, it comes with risk. There is no risk-free investment. So these are my opinions. It's not financial advice. I don't want you to think that, okay, wow, Pastor Wen has told me a risk-free investment. No, there is risk. There is risk. So I'm going to put up, their annual performance for the last 10 years. So you can see that there are some years where they're in the red. But as at today, while the most of the Western stock exchanges are in the red, they're actually up. You're going to see they're actually up, and by a bit. They're actually up. And this is because it's global, so there's more protection for you. Now, I know this is a mouthful, what I've said, and maybe you have questions. Now, if you have questions, you can put your questions in the comment sections of this video, or those of you who have managed, I don't know how, to get my email address, then you can email me, I'll respond to you back. Now, you got to remember, I do not have a WhatsApp forum, a Telegram channel, or a Gmail email address. So be careful in the comment section. You're going to see people who have downloaded my photo and they've created YouTube profiles with my photo, and then they start approaching in the comment section telling you, contact me. This is my WhatsApp number, or this is my Telegram channel, this is my Gmail email address, and they ask you to pay money, and then they dupe you. I don't ask for money from anybody. Everything I do as a labor of love for free. That is when I'm working with Apostle of Prosperity, saying, God bless you.
But Reno travels all around the world. I hope you get inspired about what you see. Apostle of greatness, Reno is a master. Only one man against the whole world in large. Fighting with the monsters, poverty I can't stand. That's why Reno is